Hello and welcome to Random Nintendo number 55. I am Jason, one of three hosts for you today. Alongside me, we have to my virtual left, Angel.
Oh, I'm on the left this time? Or am I
Yeah,
always on the left?
I don't know.
Left?
No, I feel
I
like you're
don't
on
know.
the left because Jason's left hand is like his dominant hand. And I just
This is
remember
true.
We've
So
never
why-
actually set the
it.
table of where we are in relation to each other.
If we were an improv troupe, we would not be, no one would believe our pantomimes at all because we wouldn't finish the scene. We wouldn't we would pick up the imaginary cup and never put that back down. It would just disappear in our hands. We would be horrible. Yeah.
If we were being literal though.
You're both
Like-
to my right from where I'm currently sitting. You're both east of me and I'm facing north.
I mean, yeah, but we form a triangle no matter what though. We're like,
Well, that's not literal at all, but okay. You're actually more of a straight
we form
line to a
we form a triangle.
parallelogram.
We're 3 points. 3 points make a triangle.
It's
I don't know how.
very skinny on one side, tightly packed on the other side triangle.
Yeah, but that's still a triangle.
All right, fine. So we're a triangle.
There is a to your left and a to your right.
Yes, there is. If it's a very elongated triangle, which this is, because I'm
No,
way
that's
to
what
the
I
west
said.
of you guys.
Yeah, that's what I said. Which means there's still a to your left and to your right.
No, there's not. I'm the tip of the triangle. I'm the tip of this arrow, and you're the back two points. If you want to think of it that way.
Do we need to go over how
I'm
triangles
so
work,
lost.
Jason?
So if you take a super elongated triangle and you stretch the tip of it all the way to one side, the other two sides are still to your
is
other
irrelevant
side.
in this argument.
Well, it's not though.
It's a
'cause
triangle.
Okay, fine. So we're not a literal triangle. We're a figure of triangle. We're literally more of a very stretched little. Anyway, to my virtual left is Kevin.
Yep,
Oh,
that's
now
me.
he's on the left. All right.
Somebody who did not do well in trigonometry.
I don't think I did. I'm not. Anyway, to my virtual right is Angel.
Here, apparently.
Yeah. And while we're talking geography, we should note, so as we've talked about on the show a lot, we are based in Los Angeles. We're all okay, right? Everyone's family's okay. We all made it through the fires all right between the three of us, correct?
Well, I mean, the fires are still going on, but
I did, yeah. We do have the fortunate luxury that all three of us live pretty in city areas, so like a lot of the affected areas that unfortunately lost as much as they did were right up against brush and hillside and forest and that sort of thing, and that burns like nothing. That's like a tinderbox, but to get to like us, it has to burn through a ton of concrete, a ton of metal, a ton of like slow stuff that would presumably slow it down. So I think even if the fire's still burning out in the Angela's forest, Angelina, whatever that forest is, I think it's away from people. It's definitely away from us. So there's that. But was the smoke bad by you guys when it was burning? Because that's the story that more of LA I think was affected by. Was the smoke was awful.
Not really. I mean, I feel like by where I was at, I'm just that much further east that it didn't really feel like it didn't really affect, thankfully, my home day to day.
That's good. Kevin, was everything smoke wise okay with you?
yeah, relatively, I guess.
Yeah, over here, the first
Yeah, I mean,
day.
you're significantly closer.
I was
so-
significantly closer. Over here, the first day, or that Wednesday, so the fire started on Tuesday, and that Wednesday, like, our air quality index was 323. Like, on the map, it wasn't even deep purple, it was just black. And, like, when we woke up, it was, like, I don't know, 8:30 in the morning, but it felt like it was, like, 6 a.m. That's how dark it was from just the smoke blocking the sun. It was a rougher. But then all the air sort of shifted and ended up going out over the ocean and then down into, like, the southern part of LA County, like, the beach cities, like, if you guys know, those listening, like Hermosa Beach, Manhattan Beach, like the LAX area started getting it a lot worse. So that at least freed us up here. But yeah, that was bad smoke. There's still stuff in the air, by the way. So anyone listening in LA, like if you have a mask or a way to mask your face, might not be a bad idea because all those electronics, all those houses, all the asbestos in those old houses, like all that's just like in the air now. So I've had like a weird scratchy throat the past like 4 days. Like I'm not all sick. I just have like this weird throat thing, which I imagine is a result of it. But yeah, it's been an interesting time. I think for LA, like obviously in the immediate aftermath, there's all those folks who unfortunately lost their homes. There's a few of Rachel's family friends who lost their homes, which of course is awful. And Hope the best for them. But at the same time, I think what's going to be interesting for the whole city is the ripple. Angel, you, me, and a friend were out Friday night in downtown LA. I have never seen it so dead. And this is weeks removed from when the fires obviously happened. And I'm not saying like everyone that lost their homes immediately got to go bar hopping. But my point is like the economic ripple of this is going to be really interesting because right now we're not affected, but I wonder how the city will change in the coming years. And then the counterpoint to that, I wonder how the injection of money for the Olympics and federal aid for these fires and stuff is going to like counterbalance that. But we're in it's a weird area to be in. It's like our Katrina in a way. So it's going to be, or our 9/11 kind of. So it's going to be interesting to watch it unfold. But we are okay. That's the takeaway. We're all okay. So a couple people reached out. So thank you for asking to those who reached out. That was nice of you. More fun stuff. What's going on, guys? How's life beyond the fires? Or I guess without the fires. Anything going on in these last couple weeks between you guys?
I was in Texas for a conference.
Oh, where in Texas?
Frisco, Texas. If anybody lives in Frisco, Texas, I'm sorry to say, but Frisco, Texas, not fun at all.
There's probably a reason that's one you haven't heard of. Like people have heard Dallas, Houston.
Well, it's just northwest of Dallas.
Oh, is it like a suburb? Is it that close?
No, it's like I guess. What would you call like Hollywood? Just a city.
Hollywood's yeah. I mean, it's a city, but I would say it's part of LA. It's almost like a neighborhood, even though it's an incorporated city.
Sure, then yeah, that's what I would call Frisco, I guess.
Gotcha. Okay. And so nothing exciting there?
No, nothing is exciting over there at all, and it's cold as balls too. Right
There's
now,
a huge cold snap around most of the U.S. Yeah.
And
yeah,
so that wasn't fun. But
how cold is cold? How cold did it get when you were there?
13 degrees, I think.
Oh, that's cold.
No. I might be thinking 31, not 13.
So that's a very different temperature. That technically both are below freezing. So there you go.
But we're also like Angelinos, right? So anything under 60 is freezing for us.
Yeah, anything under 60, you gotta be like 3 layers deep. Yeah, in clothes. 100%.
So,
yeah. Well, welcome back to the warmth. Although weirdly, as some of these fires have been burning after the initial wave, we had a frost warning issued at the same time as a fire warning. Didn't even know that was possible. Like the oxymoron of that sentence. Like that's crazy. We had both at once, but yeah, it was chilly out here, but now it's warm again. Angel, what about? I feel like the weather is, man. We're gonna do the Switch 2 is announced, and we spend 2 hours talking about the weather. But Angel, what's going on with you?
It's also been kind of a slow couple weeks, but that has been very good for me. I felt like I needed something a little slower. Part of that is actually due to, I think it's been mentioned in the podcast before, but as a way to, just have some regular exercise, but also try something new. I've been playing, I guess we'll just call not even pick up baseball. We'll just call it playing ball. Like for a little under a year, and usually we do that after work, but the field that we normally use is under maintenance right now until March. It's a long time. So we're kind of sans field, which means that after work, my time has kind of cleared up a little bit, which it's not super great. I've had to find other things to take. I mean, there's plenty of other things I could use that time for, but I've been instead using it to kind of step back a little, rethink some short-term goals, some long-term goals, and that has been pretty nice. Nothing super crazy fun. I mean, aside of that, this weekend I did enter a Smash Brothers tournament at my local library. Not something I would have expected to have done.
Yeah, that's a sentence.
But
cool.
It was brought to my attention by a close friend of mine that lives in this town too, and it's a free tournament. It's a local, but I'm dubbing this there are major tournaments and then there are super major tournaments. Super major tournaments, usually being where you get, nationally ranked players, and you're basically the best of the best. And you have your major tournaments, which you just have some of the best people in that region, and then you have local tournaments that are like you have. It's more like it's competitive, but not quite at a major level. But I would feel like local to major is usually where I would find a lot of the competition like around my skill level because I'm definitely not like crazy good in Smash Brothers, but I could definitely hold my own. But kind of going in that super major being amazingly good people, just going more in the opposite direction. I'm almost gonna call this one a super local, where it's essentially as casual as you can go for a tournament. I feel it's actually really great, but I also want to emphasize that the super part is for it being a local tournament with no stakes because it was free. Production values wise, it was way better than almost, if not almost, all the local tournaments I've been to, which are usually at bars or some game stores. Because this library had a room dedicated just for the Smash Bros. Tournament. They had bleachers. They had a crowd that was literally just sitting on the bleachers watching the games on a giant projector. So you had like a crowd, and
Wait,
then
they brought in
also
bleachers, like stadium seating style
no, the
benches?
bleachers are integrated into the room. They're the kinds that like you push them up against the wall
Oh,
and they go flat, but you could pull them out to get bleachers, like would you would
oh,
find in a
interesting.
gymnasium. And they had free drinks. I mean, water, free drinks, and some snacks. And they also had like a 12 and under division and 18 and over division. Or actually, I think it might have been 17 and younger. But which was nice because I think when I first heard, oh yeah, tournament at local library, I'm like, oh man, I'm just gonna. Is it gonna be like that one Comic Con where I had to go up
You
against
destroyed a
like a
bunch of like
10-year
10-year-olds.
old? Yeah, and like the parents were there. But this time they were in their own field, in their own division, which I watched them play, and it was really adorable. Parents cheering for every single little attack that happens. The kids are just flying around. Basically, first person to get thrown off the stage loses. There were a few like it's funny because like it's 12 and under, and there were maybe like 3 12-year-olds, and the rest were like 8 or 7 or 6. So those younger kids, they were just like picking characters like Toon Link or Kirby and just down being the whole time. Just jumping, down B, jumping, down B, jumping, down B. Which, it worked. It got some of them pretty far until they
You
had to
know,
play one of the
that's what I do
one of
too.
the
Yeah, that's kind
and
of
it
what I
worked.
do also. So,
Because at that level, like yeah, like they're just straight up attacking. It's just raw Smash Brothers. They're not trying to dodge or get out of the way of the attacks. They just take them. But then you get the 12-year-old where they actually play defensively, and they ended up winning. And then I played against the older crowd, and not gonna lie, I was even though it was free, I just wanted to go in and have fun. But I also wanted to win. And
I
of
wanted to be
course, anytime
casual,
I
but also very competitive. Yeah.
well, yeah, I mean that all that really means is that like I don't take losses personally, or I'm not gonna get mad over them.
Yeah, no, I got you.
But
Yeah.
But there were also some people there that were definitely there to play. Like I mean, I was hanging out at the library anyway because I was just working on some other personal projects. But some people were there like 3 4 hours early as well. Like they came in with their GameCube controllers. Like some of them came in a group wearing like Nintendo like a Nintendo apparel, and I was like, oh okay, this might be a pretty tough one. And the rules were also interesting because it was also just the best of one. So it wasn't even a 2 out of 3 or a double elimination. It was just one game, 3 stocks, 3 minutes as well. So it was like the default online rules if you play in For Glory. So most of the time, almost all of the matches ended in a sudden death or they only had enough time to take out one stock. Like, which can definitely feel like it raises the stakes. But I did end up winning. I think at most I lost 2 stocks. I definitely over prepared mentally, but at the same time, it was a tournament at a library. But it was fun. My sister and nieces and brother-in-law also came and watched, and I very much enjoyed hearing my niece's voice yell out Bowser, and other people following in suit because they're like, oh, like little 3-year-olds cheering for a Bowser. And I won a $50 GameStop gift card, so that's pretty
Nice.
neat.
I
The only sad part is that the 12 and under division got gift cards and this really awesome looking 3D printed Smash Brothers trophy. Just imagine the Smash Brothers logo, like a nice, like bigger than a CD, just suspended in the air with like a reef looking ceremonial thing. It looks like, and they had one in gold, silver, and bronze. The bronze one was just more red, if anything, so it looked like the Melee logo. But they look pretty cool. I would have loved to have one, but they, I guess, figured the older kids or older people don't need one. But
Probably not
I
sanctioned
yeah.
by Nintendo either. So
Oh no.
one of those
yeah, so
narcs
it's
probably go
if
to them for a cease
yeah,
and desist.
exactly. You don't want
Yeah.
the Nintendo ninjas showing up at your house and trashing it just to get your 3D printed reef adorned Smash Bros logo trophy.
Yeah, and you could tell like the office staff like managed the tournament, I would say, like excellently. Like just got everyone in and out really. I mean, if anything, the fact that it was a just one game and that's it in your route scenario was honestly great. The whole thing lasted like maybe an hour and a half. So I was just in and out really quick. And yeah, they said they'll do it again some other time. So yeah, no reason not to go back and just see what other gift cards they have. But
And what other
yeah,
trophies you won't be given.
yeah.
I will say though, like when you're talking about like the kids that are competing, like imagine how fun that must be for kids. Like I feel like when you're a kid, you're always looking up to whatever and wanting to do that cool thing. And like these days, it's for better or worse, Twitch streamers and esports and that sort of thing. But to have the opportunity to like play on a big screen and have people cheer, even if, like as if it's like a JV or like a middle school like sport, but it's like video game tournament. That's gotta be so fun for a kid. I mean, I know Nintendo, like a lot of people diss Nintendo for not doing stuff with esports, but they, I forgot who it is, Play VS and someone else. They host like Nintendo sponsors high school, Generation Esports is the other one. Play VS and Generation Esports. They host like tournaments in high schools, and Nintendo will like provide switches. And it's like an extracurricular club in the same way another sport would be. And there's like competitive gaming between different teams from different schools. It's like a whole thing, but it's games. And I like when we were growing up, I feel like that wasn't a thing, especially not like a sanctioned by Nintendo thing with stuff provided. So like it's really cool, be it that or like a kind of grassroots like you're describing. It's cool that kids have those opportunities now. Like I feel like when we were kids or when I was a kid and watching video game stuff, it was always like, oh, one day I'll go to E3 or oh, one day I'll be a game journalist. But now it's like, oh yeah, one day I'll get a following of fellow fans who enjoy this game, and then I'll go compete, and they'll all be there cheering for me. Like that's kind of cool. And it's cool that like kids can like have that moment in the sun at these tournaments.
Yeah,
So.
we're really glad the Downey staff sees the benefits in that. And they're also doing Mario Kart, they have anime nights. This library honestly is pretty awesome with just like the amount of activities they have and just the facilities. Like if our weekends weren't so packed with things, at least I'm assuming all of ours are. And I know I've mentioned this to you before, Jason, but like there's literally like a recording studio that
Oh
anyone
yeah,
could use. Like
we can be in
decked
person
out
again.
decked out with like a podcast table with some mic setup, some wall padding. Like
We'll be able to tell who's
because
to our left and who's to our right because we'll all be in the same
yeah,
room. Yeah.
you could literally and it has like equipment, like it has ring lights if you want to record like I don't know, some kind of video
Podcast,
thing.
video blog. Yeah. That's really cool.
Yeah. So
Yeah, I
you
mean,
could definitely see a lot
I
of people.
definitely, the more I think about it, the more I can definitely relate to like how kids must be excited to like, because like, yeah, they have their streamers, but I remember like, middle school and high school, I was making Nintendo websites and reporting news and like reviewing things and like wanting to it's very rewarding when you're able to see it through. I was very, 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 very fortunate that the way I was able to see it through got Nintendo's attention. And, I was close to them for a while. I was basically an influencer and everything but name. But because it predated the term, I'm so old. But it's really cool that kids have a way to like see it through in these capacities as well. And it's like so accessible at a library,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Um, Speaking of Nintendo, though, so we kind of we kind of buried the lead a little. I mentioned it, but only in passing. Guys, it happened. It finally happened. The Nintendo Switch 2 gaming console system, handheld, whatever you want to call it, is real. It's official.
No way.
It's out in a video, not to buy. It's real, guys. They weren't faking all those leaks. It was a real thing.
I'm just glad this means that people can finally stop talking about leaks. Well,
as I
I
was
guess
saying the
there'll
other
still be some
day,
other ones.
yeah, we're done with the
now
hardware
there's going to be
leaks.
about the software or
Exactly.
Well,
I think what did I write the other day? It was something like I'm ready to move on from the hardware rumors and on to this. Let me see if I can find it. It was like this is what we're into. Oh yeah. Ready for the end of Switch 2 hardware rumors and the beginning of rumors about the games, the OS, the launch, the price, the pre-orders, the inventory, the marketing, it's like a million things now.
Yeah, I was going to say, of all the Nintendo teases until we get some kind of official announcement, this is probably the one I've been in the dark the most of, and I was still very much annoyed.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I guess
let's real quick.
Inescapable. I think the only way
it's hard
to get out is if I just drop Jason.
No, it's not even just me. It was like you'd go to, for example, I would go like The Verge or something, and there's
Jason.
It sounds like you're trying to get out of the podcast, Mister to my right, but no, it.
I never said podcast.
Oh, you want me to get dropped from the podcast? Then it'll just be randomer because I'm pretty much the one that brings Nintendo more often than not. So it'll just be truly randomer anime. I feel like is where it would land, or randomer manga. But anyway, yeah, it. I obviously perpetuated some of those leaks here on the show. It was points of conversation, and there's speculation to be had with this announcement too, but it was as inescapable. I mean, unless you didn't go to any tech website or any video game website. I mean, there were at CES there were 3D printed versions of the exact thing that was then announced on January 16th. Like perfect replica. It is real hard. This go round in particular, for one that you tried to say the most in the dark about, this was also the one where the leaks were the most prolific, I guess you could say. Like it was everywhere. But for those who maybe are not following Nintendo all that closely, which makes me wonder how you've found this podcast, but regardless of how you got to us, for those who are not following it that closely, we should probably do a quick rundown of what the Switch 2 first look trailer actually was. It was a fitting 2 minutes and 22 seconds of, hey, see how this is like the Switch, but isn't the Switch? Which translates to them basically showing us piece by piece, hardware angle by hardware angle, every contrasting feature of the Switch 2 compared to the Switch 1. All in what I assume was an effort to really not let people get mixed up like they did from Wii to Wii U in the most smack in your face way. Look, this button is added. Look, there's this groove here on the hardware. And, once they did that, which was most of the trailer, then they had a small tease of the next Mario Kart. And then it was over. So on the hardware, to your point about kind of leaks, we basically got a checklist of all the rumors and leaks being pretty much 100% on point. Bigger screen, check. Bigger Joy-Cons that snap in with magnets, check. Complete with a new sort of echoey sound effect. It's more of a clap than a snap for the new Switch. I actually kind of like it. It kind of bridges the iconic snap, but sounds kind of new at the same time. Anyway, we also got a dock that shows a bit more of the screen than before. Check, just as rumored. Joy-Con mouse controls, well, almost check. They showed the Joy-Cons kind of racing around, drifting, if you will. They're on their sides after they attach to the wrist strap accessory, and they're kind of zipping around the space. And the wrist strap is strategically placed behind them, kind of like the cord of a mouse dangling behind it. So, yes, almost, probably mouse. We'll find out. Anyway, USB-C port on the top of the unit, along with the one that exists on the bottom today. Check. And this one's actually maybe the most interesting in a way, because ultimately it's basically a big old accessory port that's perfectly placed right on top of your Switch while you can charge on the other one. Now, I mean, originally they probably put it there because a lot of people didn't like how you had to charge on bomb when it's certain, in handle mode, it could be cumbersome, it could be weird. So this lets you do it on top. But also, if you want to have quirky Nintendo accessories you can plug into the top, this kind of is perfect for that, should they go that route. I mean, there were rumors at one point that maybe they're doing a camera accessory. That's not based in any reality, I don't think, but I could see that happening. So who knows what else they'll cook up. But USB-C port is confirmed, and the Switch 2 name and logo, check and check, 100% spot on for both. People made their own Switch 2 logo renders, and they were perfect matches of the final logo. So there you go. The only thing that was missing was the C button, which is there as a button, but is not labeled C. And we still don't know what it does. So in the rumors, it was going to be under the home button. There is a little square button under there. Perhaps the casting idea we talked about a few episodes back was maybe too far-fetched, maybe not. The C is not there, though, so we will see what that means. Point is, the only surprise in the trailer was probably confirmation of a new Mario Kart. And even there, I use surprise loosely since, it wasn't full-on leaked. Of course there was a new Mario Kart. Nintendo's making the sequel to the 64 million copy selling Mario Kart 8, the best-selling game on Switch that over almost half of Switch owners, I think 44%, own a copy of. No way. So yeah, that was there. That made its debut. That made a certain amount of sense. We'll get to the game, but yeah, that was what the revealed show. What'd you guys make of it? I mean, I assume we've all watched mapped into a confirmation video, but
Yeah,
thoughts?
I mean, I don't know. I mean, in a nutshell, I mean, I guess I'm happy. I'm not really ready to move away from the Switch yet, just considering how little time I've had in the last couple years to play as many games as I would normally like to play.
Mm-hmm.
So there is still a lot in the Switch backlog that I wouldn't even say is in the, just games I'm going to forget about and play when I get to them. These are games that I am actively playing, that I'm trying to play. When I get a chance, I jump on them. But even then, that's just not enough time. It's going to take me years to get through them. I mean, to give you an idea, when I'm not chomping at the bit to play Tears of the Kingdom, I still want to play it, but I haven't even purchased it yet. I want to play, I still haven't purchased, but I do want to replay Donkey Kong Country Returns. I still have to play Kirby's Forgotten Land, Mario RPG, the Mario and Luigi game. There's another one I'm forgetting in there. Mario vs. Donkey Kong.
Well, good news, Angel. You can play all of those on your Switch too.
Physical or digital, with a few exceptions, because I'm sure Ring Fit and Labo won't work because the Switch is the wrong size, the Switch 2.
But, well, exactly. Yeah. That's why I'm happy that the Switch 2 is basically just another Switch. And I'm just using the term basically loosely, because I could just buy it and then just transfer my whole library over and basically continue like nothing happened.
And potentially even get some upscale or upres. Not confirmed, but Nintendo does have a patent on DLSS upscaling on NVIDIA chips. And maybe the Switch will output in 4K on a TV, and maybe those games will be upscaled in there. But or realistically, it just keeps file sizes down in new games.
A Rhythm Heaven and a sequel to Ring Fit Adventure. Those are my two wants. Everything else,
Ring Fit, I'm not sure is going to happen, to be honest. Rhythm Heaven, my initial thought is it always comes out at the tail end of a console's life, I feel like. The original was maybe the exception. That came out in 2009 with the Beyonce commercial.
You don't think Ring Fit Adventure has any chance of a sequel? Didn't it sell well?
It sold incredibly well.
It even got a little Alarmo section.
I think that ship may have failed.
They're not done with that.
My guess is they're going to save that for Switch 2, and they'll do some new gimmick with some new exercise band accessory that you'll need a Switch 2 to use.
Wait, isn't that what I'm asking? Well, what are you saying?
I thought you were saying you wanted a new Rhythm Heaven and a new Ring Fit on Switch 1 that you could play back.
No, I don't.
Oh, well, yeah, okay. It'll come to Switch 2. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, let me elaborate.
Rhythm Heaven will be on Switch 1, and you'll play it that way because they always do it at the tail end of the system.
I don't care which. I mean, look, I'm getting the Switch 2 regardless. Like I said, I'm happy it's just another Switch. At the end of the day, that my libraries are interchangeable, and I could just play whatever Switch 2 has. But all I need to be happy is just another Rhythm Heaven and Ring Fit Adventure, whichever one it's on.
Gotcha. Obviously, I thought you meant for Switch 1. Gotcha. Then yes,
no.
Ring Fit.
Ring Fit 2 is going to be a thing. What do you mean?
Yeah, no, Ring Fit 2, yeah, your point, it's in Alarmo. It's one of the top-selling games on the system. Nintendo loves to sell plastic, or in this case, stretchy materials, and they sold a ton of them for Ring Fit. I think it definitely has a future on Switch 2. And like I said, I think they're going to make a new gimmick that makes you have to rebuy the exercise equipment because the Switch 2 Joy-Con, I don't even know if it'll fit in the Switch 1 Ring Fit, to be honest, because it's a bigger Joy-Con now.
I can't imagine that Nintendo isn't going to let us use existing Joy-Con for this.
I think
no way.
you'd be able to Bluetooth, you just won't be able to hook them to the console, would be my guess.
Right, but in case of Ring Fit, you won't need to.
That's true. I guess if you want to sync them, I guess they just have to put the disclaimer of like not all games will work as intended, because if you are just buying a Switch 2 and then buying Ring Fit on sale, because it's been on sale a lot this past year, for example.
Ring Fit Classic.
Yeah, if you're getting Ring Fit Classic, you would need the Joy-Con Classic for your Ring Fit Classic.
Yeah, you'll need some other way to charge them as well.
Yeah, they did.
Yeah.
Coincidence
I don't mind
or not,
having
come
them as
out
dedicated Ring Fit accessories though at that point.
And coincidence or not, it was only last fall they came out with the solo separate Joy-Con charger. It's a little stand you could plug both Joy-Con into, and it'll just charge them. You don't need a Switch. Almost as if they're preparing for the inevitable switch over to Switch 2 with still providing a way to use Joy-Cons. Yeah. Because I'm sure not only, to your point, Kevin, not only for like Ring Fit, but so many people bought so many Joy-Cons because they would accessorize their Switches with custom Joy-Con, or not custom, but they're different mix and match colors. So a lot of people have a lot of Joy-Cons. I imagine they don't want to completely make people feel like they wasted their money after 3 years or 4 years or however long they've had them. You know, kind of like how Wii Remote still worked with the Wii U of all varieties.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. But yeah, the biggie I'm curious about that no one's really talked about. I wonder what's going to be the deal with the Pro Controller 2. I imagine there's going to be a new Pro Controller. It's not going to have the mouse controls. Obviously, you need a Joy-Con for that. Assuming that's even real.
They'll figure out a way.
Are they going to just like stick a headphone jack on it and be like, see? Look at that. Now you have a headphone jack on your Pro Controller. Buy up. Like, there's got to be something.
We're not thinking fourth dimensionally like Nintendo.
We're not.
Does the Pro Controller not have a headphone jack?
I don't think it does. I've always Bluetooth to the Switch. Which, do you guys remember how long it took to put Bluetooth audio as a Switch feature? It was like 5 years in. But yeah, I don't remember there being a jack on the Pro Controller.
Hold on, my Pro Controller is somewhere around here. Give me a second.
Yeah, go for it. Do you remember, Angel, while he's looking?
Of what?
If there's a headphone jack on the Pro Controller? I feel like there was not.
There is on the bottom.
Oh, there is. Kevin, come back. There is.
There isn't.
Oh, I knew it. Okay, wow.
Wow.
I trust you too much, Angel, because I was like, oh, I guess there is. Well, while Kevin looks.
No, I'm back.
Oh, you're back. Yeah, so no jack, right?
No, I didn't find it because I heard him say that. But.
Okay, yeah. But yeah, so I imagine it'll come up with some stuff. I mean, one of the things that's kind of been... See, this is where the leaks get silly, and I don't know if to believe them or not. But now people are like, oh, well, some of the software SDK leaked. Like, the developer kit software leaked. I'm like, really? And they're like, yeah, and in it, like, there's a thing called, like, Campus. And it's this social thing. You can have, like, voice chat parties of up to 12 people. And it's all in the SDK that leaked. I'm like, really? And if that's true, who knows? Like, that would explain the C button potentially. That could be going to your communications and chat and social stuff. That would give a justification for a headphone jack and a Pro Controller 2 should they choose to go there. Like, it does add up, but also, like, this is where the rumors, I don't want to say jump the shark, but, like, an SDK software kit, like, really? I don't know if I buy that one, but that's the type of rumors we're going to be getting the next few months, probably. The operating system, the games. I mean, there's already rumors about what games are going to come, apparently Microsoft very much stuff, but as it is, there was enough to talk about with just the Switch reveal. And I did actually want to talk about the reveal itself. So did you guys, like, how, when you were watching it, was it like they're going through a checklist? Was there any hype, or were you just kind of like, yep, okay, on with my day? Because I imagine
any hype I could have had was killed by this podcast, actually.
Oh, you're welcome. You're welcome. You're welcome.
Because and this is like, like, I mean, I love this podcast. Like, don't take that with a grain of salt.
We're just holding up a mirror to the discourse, Angel.
I mean, this is just me beating the dead horse with, like, just my dislike for rumors and speculative talk. Yeah, because speculative talk is fine. It's everyone loves to speculate. It's fun to imagine what could be. But if it's like, oh, I heard this through the grapevine or blah, 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 or like this is it, reports are saying that this is going to have this and it's going to have that. Like, that does nothing but just even if you try to ignore it, it's gonna set some kind of baseline expectation, or at least
Yeah.
implant it on the back of your head and just remove any kind of excitement. Because like I was still happy to see it, but instead of like had I not known at all when this announcement was gonna happen, as I was like a week ago, like I just imagined it was gonna happen sometime in March, or honestly, it just wasn't even in my mind. Like whenever Nintendo officially announces something, that's usually when I'll hear it. Because I at this point, I think I really just follow like Nintendo, and I kind of stopped following a lot of these other news sites, and that normally would report this stuff like Go Nintendo or stuff like that. I mean, it does kind of help that
Yeah.
I've been off Twitter for years, and I rarely go on Threads. Like it's been very catered, like what I see. And then obviously, just chatting here with Jason, hearing that like, oh, not only are we gonna have a trailer soon or some reveal of some
Oh
sort,
yeah.
it
Me
it's gonna
yesterday.
all yeah, it's gonna have like the first half of it is gonna be pretty much like a hardware showcase. They're just showing it, and then we might get a sizzle reel or something of some game, some reveal, most likely Mario Kart, and it's probably gonna come out like around 6 a.m. And pretty much all of that was true. So like when I
No, it was
wake up
all
the
spot
next
on.
morning,
Yeah, I
well, I mean, it was just Mario Kart. It wasn't like a whole sizzle reel of
no,
things.
but
But
the yeah, you called me the night before because sometimes we call each other when we're driving home from work and just like catch up. And I was like, so the rumor mill's a
Aww.
churn. I know it's adorable, but and the rumor mill was churning because Nate the Hater, one of those insiders, was like, it's coming Thursday, guys. And at that point, there was no tease from Nintendo that there was something coming tomorrow. So I said to Angel on the call, honestly, they're probably just gonna shadow drop this thing, and they tend to shadow drop at 6 or 7 a.m. And at 5:10 a.m., there was the shadow drop. So yeah, it is. There's a mix of leaks and
yeah,
identifying patterns, and
instead of it being
yeah,
like, oh, Nintendo dropped the video, gotta watch this, it was just like there was a lot of like, oh, there it is. Oh, yep, there are the mice. The thing that's like something that never in a million years I would have even guessed they would even
yeah,
attempt to do. But because it was so like prominently, I guess speculate. Well, not even speculate, just I guess reported. It just became like oh yeah, there they are. Obviously, when we see them in action, when we see games, that'll be very exciting. It just took some wind out of it, but
it
it
did.
doesn't
It
make it
did.
or break it. At the end of the day, I am very excited and very happy for the Switch 2. I can't
I
wait to
do.
get it in my hands. But that being said, also I can't wait to just get my actual copy of the console. Do you even call it that unit in my
Yeah.
hands? So I don't necessarily plan to, or no, I guess I don't plan to, if I participate in the raffle or win the raffle to try to play it
Oh,
early.
for the Switch
Because
2 experience in New York, Los Angeles, and Dallas, of all
yeah,
places. Yeah.
because at that point, like I'm already sold on it, so I feel like I gain nothing from playing it early, except like, oh man, the buttons are slightly more clicky than I would have liked. Nope, I'm changing my mind. Like I don't think there's anything that it could
Well,
do that would make me change my mind
yeah, I think it's more
or
just
make
to.
me want it more. Like I don't know. I feel like years ago I would have been yes, any opportunity to play anything Nintendo early, I'm on it. But
I'm still of
not
that
anymore.
opinion, in part because we could talk about it here on this very show. Like
It's gonna come out like 2 days later. Just watch.
no, it realistically, if we want to play the guessing game a little, um,
Well,
the
now it's fun because now it's
Nintendo.
just speculative. I
Right. So
like the
Nintendo's
Jason rumors.
marketing cadence,
Well, not rumors, predictions. There you go.
Jason analysis, the Janalysis. Yeah. So Nintendo's marketing cadence for Switch One, which just seems to be following, was Switch One was announced in late October. In early January, so like 2.5 months later, it had its big blowout, and then 8 weeks, 9 weeks later, it came out in March. So far for Switch Two, we have the first like trailer in late January. About 2.5 months later, we have the blowout, which will be the Nintendo Direct Nintendo Switch 2 edition on April 2nd, and then presumably, if they're following that drumbeat, 8 to 9 weeks, 8 to 10 weeks later, we'll get the system. Probably late May or June is my guess, which would line up with Nintendo always now liking to get hardware out well before the holidays so they can get the initial rush of Nintendo fans and then restock inventory in time for the holidays versus doing a holiday launch where it sells out and they miss out on more casual people sales. So Late May, June, book it. That's what it's gonna be. Um, but I do feel like, to your point about the hype and the leaks and stuff, I do feel like Nintendo is kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place with the leaks. Like, and it's somewhat their own doing. Like, I know you were like, oh well, if people just didn't leak, but like they're trying to be more like Apple, right? But they're also still very Nintendo in how they roll new stuff out. So you may recall for most of the Switch generation, Nintendo's gone on record that they're going to be different than they've been before. They want to shake up the generation lifespan. They want to rethink what the concept of a generation could be, and you know, everything was signaling more of an Apple style approach where we get new hardware, but it's kind of a continuation more than anything else, as we're seeing with Switch 2. And that in turn meant that the lead time for news on new console can be much shorter, just like with iPhones or iPads or Macs or what have you. Like, there's no major reinventing the wheel. You don't need 2 years of lead time or hardware prototypes or early gameplay shown to get people on board with the concept. You know, they showed it first at like E3 2004 as the revolution. And they're like, we're doing a whole new thing. Like GameCube, that's going to be the past. This little box with a glowy disk drive will be the future. And then next year, like, okay, here's how you play it. And then the year after that, they're like, okay, and here's the games you're playing it on. And it did basically that same thing with the Wii U, right? Like, it's like a very slow, steady build up. But now with this kind of more like, it's iterative, it's quicker. They're kind of doing a more Apple or Samsung style hype cycle where they're announcing the thing well into manufacturing and then churning out when the initial hype is at its peak. Like, they did Switch 1 really well, where there's only a couple months lead time. Looks like Switch 2 is going to be the same deal, right? But the problem is, if they're holding back until manufacturing is well underway at such a large scale, and with now so many more eyeballs and potential opportunities to generate clickbait and articles and content and kind of make money off the popularity of Switch 1, like, Nintendo should have known they'd face an environment that comes with leaks in a way that they haven't really before. Like, when Apple announces a new iPhone, so much of it is already leaked, just like the Switch 2 was. You know, we see CAD files like 9 months, 10 months in advance. Accessory makers are putting out all sorts of like third-party accoutrement of like cases and little widgets and ding-dongs and plugins and whatever. You know, maybe they're doing photos of unfinished hardware casings and like floating around. Maybe it even gets left at a bar like the iPhone 4 did. And people have kind of a rough idea of what to expect when then, you know, Tim Cook or Steve Jobs gets on stage every September, and Apple has learned that when that time comes, yes, you confirm the things that got leaked, and then you basically fill all the gaps of what people don't know. You do it all in one go. You're just like, this is the iPhone. We'll see you in a couple weeks. It's done. You know everything now. I feel like with Switch 2, it kind of feels like Nintendo, I don't know if they buried their head in the sand that these leaks wouldn't occur with them, like out of ignorance or intentionally, like, no, we know this works, we're just going to do it our way. But we got months of people basically saying, here's what the hardware is. And instead of Nintendo doing a huge blowout where it finally came out like Apple would do, they're like, hey, here's what the hardware is, as if we did just hear it a few months ago, you know, as if we had no clue what it was. And on the one hand, that's totally fine. Nintendo's very much entitled to do that. They don't have to like respond to leaks. But it's hard to deny that like going through a checklist of this leak and that leak is as exciting as a surprise, like you were saying. And I think Nintendo, this being the first time they've kind of been in like the Apple situation with an iterative hardware that's already well under manufacturing and way beyond, you know, the attention that the Switch 1 got before its launch. Like, I think they were caught a little flat-footed there. Because like, even the way Nintendo first just tweeted it out, like they tweeted out an update from Nintendo without any context. So imagine just clicking that. I mean, you're kind of describing this already, Angel, but imagine just clicking that and the video starts playing and you're watching in real time for the first time as the Switch and like the Joy-Con start morphing larger, as like the color inversions pop in and those larger like SL and R and SR buttons sort of shoot out. Suddenly they click into the console with magnets and you're like, whoa. And then there's this crazy tease of a Joy-Con like drifting around like on its side. Like, what's that mean? Like, oh my God, what's that mean? Like, you know, and it's all capped off by a new Mario Kart you didn't see coming. Like, I feel like everything in that video was perfect as a teaser if you had no idea what was happening. But because you knew what was happening, you're just kind of like, oh, yeah, that checks out. Okay. Like, it would have just been way more exciting if Nintendo like understood the circumstance around leaks in the 21st century. You know what I mean? And I mean, ultimately, it won't matter at the end of the day. Like, whether we know before the official reveal what the Switch 2 is, at the official reveal, or, you know, not or if we didn't even like fully understand it until the gay kid switched to Direct in April, what the games, what the features are. Like it when the time comes, you're gonna buy it or you won't. You're gonna like it or you won't. You'll be interested or you won't. But man, for like the enthusiasts that they want to be like galvanizing the thing from day one, it does take some of the fun out of the whole flow of experiencing like a console announcement simply because, the leak stole their thunder. And again, it's not Nintendo's fault per se. Like it's not like, oh, Nintendo, your ninjas weren't ninja enough. But like in this day and age, I feel like just should have been a little more attentive to how this could happen and perhaps gone a little more the Apple route with how they then go ahead and announce it. Like they wanted to focus on hardware changes to really drill home how Switch 2 differs from Switch 1 right out the gate to every minute detail. And they did that, but the leaks also did that. And the leaks happened to do that first since last September. So it's just kind of like, I feel like they could have, I don't know. It did take a little of the oomph out of it, but I'm still very happy with it. I still have watched the trailer multiple times to try and like find little things. Like the material on the Switch, like they seem to be doing some sort of textured material on like the plastic. I don't know. It looks nice. Like there's all these little things, but it's just, yeah, it could have been so much more cool, for lack of a better word, for like the diehard fans who will, like I said, galvanize this thing for them. And yeah, those diehard fans already formed opinions before the thing was even announced, which is weird. So, yeah, so that's where I'm kind of at with the leak, at least. But what?
No, I guess as nature just tends to be every time.
Yeah, it's just the way of the world. And to your point about like not necessarily wanting to go to play it early, I do think the word I was trying to think of the word when you were describing it. Galvanize was the word I was looking for. I don't know how much of those first-hand experiences are to like make the decision to buy. I would guess the majority, and you maybe have just stepped back from that sort of fandom, but I would guess the majority of people going are super enthusiastic day one purchasers, and the idea is they kind of become the word of mouth like marketing, like the shepherds of the console to their circle of family and friends. Because like whenever a new Nintendo thing comes out, the Wii U to a lesser extent, people always have that person or a couple people in their lives like, oh yeah, you see that new Nintendo thing? How is it? And if you can have your diehard fans be like, oh my god, I gotta play it, it's so cool, like the screen's so, it's LCD again, but it's so, supposedly, but it's so good, and like the games are like the Mario Kart, the new Mario Kart, like 24 carts, it's so cool. Like to be able to have someone say that like on the ground floor as the system's coming out and kind of start building up that hype and just having it travel through social channels and in person and that sort of thing. That's what those experiences are for, more than someone deciding if they're going to buy the thing or not, I would guess. It's really to sort of mobilize a fan army. So, but yeah, so with that said, being the Nintendo unofficial spokesperson I like to be, yeah, I planned my ticket for the raffle for the LA Switch experience. Fingers crossed that I get in. I will say, whether I get in or not, I appreciate Nintendo making it more fair for everyone, but at the same time, man, it was so much easier when only the like diehards would get up at 6 a.m. and go to something, and Nintendo wasn't like the biggest brand in the world, and it was, like a notch or two below biggest, so it was a smaller crowd to work with, because we got to do so much stuff when Nintendo did stuff in LA. Like we got to, go to all sorts of E3 events just by getting there a couple hours in advance, like 4 or 5 hours in advance. And now it's all this like equal footing, everyone gets an equal chance, which is great, but I kind of miss, if you wake up early, you'll get in. Even the Switch One, I got to go. They had a standby line, which they're not doing for this experience. And I just went at like, I don't know, 6:30 or 7 in the morning, got a standby ticket, came back at like 11 a.m., went and got some breakfast in between, and then got to play the Switch. So I get it. It's much better in general for like more people experience a console, but personally and selfishly, it's not as fun for me because my odds have gone down. But that's okay. Yeah.
I can't really think of a way that would be quote unquote fair.
This is the fairest way.
No, yeah. It is the fairest way, but the fairest way that can guarantee the person that I guess really wants it, which I guess can still be just the first come first serve, but that also, depending on that person's situation, like they could also be in a position where it just will never work out for them for A, B, or C or something.
Yeah, the beauty of this system is people will get advance notice if they're able to attend. They're given a time slot. They can take off work or find someone to sub for them or something if previously work held them back from opportunities like this. Like it does open up more opportunities and kind of broaden the pool of who can go. But for the folks who are able to finagle their way in, it actually makes it smaller of an opportunity for them. So it's you win some, you lose some. I'm just grateful for all the stuff we did get to do over the years, truthfully. So if this is the tipping point where we stop getting to go to stuff due to logistics of luck, then sure, that's fine, I guess. But I appreciate all the years we did get to kind of just make our way into anything Nintendo that we wanted to do. So, but I do want to say, to be fair to the leakers who I just blamed for sucking some of the excitement out of the reveal, I think it also needs to be said that the Switch 2 is about as iterative as everyone expected, even without leaks. Like, Switch 1 was a whole new paradigm of a console. It had a reveal to match. It was like, look how you can play it over here and over there and everywhere. And like, look at Karen. She's playing on her TV and popped it off and going to the rooftop party. Like, basically, like, your imagination can run wild. Here are all these different games and different scenarios that you can play them in. It was just very like, whoa, this is new. This is different. I haven't gamed like this before in this exact way. Like, it was a new paradigm, right? But here, the paradigm's set. Like, this is nothing new. It's iterative. So it's a reveal. It kind of, even if we got to be more excited by the reveal, it is a reveal of contrast. Like, it's what's new that's layered on top of what you're already familiar with that's worked for the past 8-9 years. So even if the leakers didn't leak, I don't think the highs that the Switch 1 reveal gave would have been met with the Switch 2, because the system's exactly as iterative as Nintendo kept saying it would be. There's not really a surprise here. Like, I feel like the ethos of Switch 2 really seems to be evolution, not revolution, and Switch 1 was more revolution. So, yeah, I don't want to say like Nintendo screwed up with the leaks or the leakers screwed everything over, because I think we still would have been into it, but there's no way it would have reached the highs of the Switch 1, Like, it's just such a different ball game now. And it's been interesting to watch. Like, I don't know if you guys paid attention to any of the reactions to it. But there's been like articles and think pieces and puff pieces and hot takes about how it's kind of a boring console. Sorry, were you about to say something?
No,
Yeah,
so I haven't seen too much. I think the most interesting thing I've seen was, and I actually do remember seeing this Nintendo Minute. I'm sure you've seen that clip that Krista reposted. How
yeah,
they had the director
the magnets.
Basically, yeah, talking about how they want to do magnets on the Switch like 6 years ago, however long ago.
Before the first Switch came out, they were considering magnets. Yeah, that video was from the pre-launch coverage, I believe.
Yeah, and I was like, oh, that's neat.
It goes back to one of my favorite. I have a few adages about Nintendo. They love to sell plastic, and they never give up on an idea. So the magnet, I think at the time they decided against it for some reason. I can't remember I watched the clip as well that Krista reposted, but I can't remember exactly why. But they ended up going with the slide-on. But they came back around. Once people were used to the idea of clipping in controllers, the magnets were, I guess, more appealing at that point. But yeah, they never give up on something. And there has been definitely a lot of like positive stuff that's come out of Switch 2 review, including some like fun tidbits like that. But I've also seen a bunch of websites hop on this bandwagon of like, it's boring, it's so cold by Nintendo standards, like how it doesn't do something new enough like past Nintendo consoles. I mean, actually, Nintendo's stock price even went down. I think it was down like over 5% the first day after the reveal, because I think people were like, that's it? It's just the Switch again? And to be fair, a lot of those initial reactions are justified, right? Like, I mean, name one iterative Nintendo system that outperformed its predecessor.
Game Boy Color?
No, there are none. None did.
I was just thinking
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. No, it was nothing. Well, it's, you know what? I take that back. Game Boy Color, I can't actually tell you because they lump it with Game Boy because there's a half step. So it's possible in theory that Game Boy Color. Yeah, but for some reason Nintendo still lumps it together. I don't know why.
You're telling me there's no official number for it out there?
Not that I could find in the past. It's always just the Game Boy family, and then Game Boy Advance was considered a separate family of systems.
That's so annoying.
Yeah, but so maybe Color, but everything else Nintendo's never. So I was a little quick on the draw by saying no because I actually have no idea. But every other system Nintendo's done, the iterative version has never sold as well as the predecessor. So the Super Nintendo sold 45 million to the NES's 62 million. I looked this all up today. The GameCube sold 22 million to the N64's 33 million. The GBA sold 81.5 million to the original Game Boy family, including Colors, 118 million. And most recently, we saw the 3DS sell 76 million to the original DS's 154 million, which is a crazy number. So I do get why right after an iteration is announced, Nintendo stock goes down, because like simple iteration in of itself does seem like a step down business wise, business performance wise, based on Nintendo's history. Um, there's also some other questions about monetization if you think about like what they're showing with Switch 2. For example, and I think we kind of touched on this, but like a really cool touch I thought on the new Switch 2 design is the inside lip of the tablet's magnetized sides, like the slots where you put in the new Joy-Cons where they click in, is color coded to match the ones you have when you buy the system.
But are those swappable?
That's the thing. I personally really love how they're doing these accent colors in general, but the de-emphasis of color and coloring the tablet itself does move away a little from the mix and match accessorizing that the Switch 1 had that we talked about, and it was so successful. Because, people would buy, I don't know how many Joy-Cons at 70, 80 bucks a pop just for the colors or the special editions or what have you. And I'm sure over time, Nintendo's going to bring bolder, more colorful Joy-Cons to the Switch 2, like Joy-Con 2s. And people may just live with the mismatched color on the tablet because admittedly it's kind of inside it and it's not a big deal and it really doesn't matter. But like one part of Switch 1 ecosystem from day one in the initial like reveal of the blowout, the reveal was only gray, but then the blowout they had the colors, was this idea that you could just like mix and match, and it was a huge slam dunk, I'm sure, revenue wise. And right now, I'm sure they'll do it, but there's not an indication they're going. There's not like the slam dunk that's going to work the same way because they already are matching the colors on the unit itself, which is new. So it's small, but I'm sure some investors and some business folk are like, huh. So they're just like not doing that this time? Like, we'll see. Like, it's kind of a question mark for something that was there are over 1,000 color combos you could do on your Switch. There are more color combos you could do with Joy-Cons on the Switch 1. This is math I did myself a few years ago. Than there are entire games in the Wii U library. Like, it's just like, it was a big thing. So it's interesting that they kind of pushed it to the side. And, on top of all that, if I'm an investor, I'm just going to be blunt. Switch 2 is not unique. It's the value proposition of a gaming device that's a hybrid device in 2017 when Switch was all alone versus now when there's the Steam Deck and this explosion of other handheld PCs. It's a more competitive market. It's like the NES being by itself and then the Super NES coming out and there's the Genesis and there's the TurboGrafx and there's the other thing, and like most of them fell to the wayside. Genesis obviously didn't, but still it looks like a much more competitive market now. And some of those competitors, well, I don't think any of them will be as big as Switch because they don't have the IPs. Steam Deck make them close. They're more niche. Some even do what Switch 2 does. Lenovo, I think it's the Legion Go, has mouse support in its controllers that pop off. So again, like Switch obviously works on a much different scale because it's more mainstream, but it's not quite this unique proposition the Switch 1 was. It doesn't quite have as many easy money-making accessories as the Switch 1 did, and it is a system with a company with a history of iterative things doing worse. So I could see why folks were like, when it was announced. But on the other side of the coin, what's different this time compared to what Nintendo went through from, say, the N64 to the GameCube, I would argue, is the state of their IPs. Like, they've talked about their big IP strategy first. For their big IP first strategy is what I'm trying to say. They've talked about that for like so long now. We may not think of it this way, but this is the first Nintendo console to come out after the shift has been completed away from their old Blue Ocean strategy. Like with Wii, with DS, with Wii U, with 3DS, even with Switch 1, like a big part of the attraction was the hardware itself, the unique proposition of what the hardware could do. It can do motion, it can do touch, it can do whatever the gamepad second screen experience was supposed to be. It can do 3D without glasses. It can do gaming anywhere. Those are all new ideas. This one's like, it does the thing the other one does. So how do you differentiate from competitors? What does it do to either be more accessible or unique now compared to what maybe others couldn't do before? That question's a little different now. And I think we talked about it both on here on Random Nintendo and probably the old Random Nintendo show too. But that Blue Ocean approach has now, as Nintendo says time and time again, switched out. It's no pun intended, but it's no longer about like presenting people with new ways to play games. More than ever, it's now focused on like who the games are about. Like as in what characters and IPs are now the thing that Nintendo wants to draw you in with more than previously hardware hooks. They generate these IPs generate such massive streams of revenue on their own too that like even if the Switch 2 weren't to do as well as the Switch 1, they still have movies, they still have the theme park, they still have all the merch, they still have mobile experiences. Pokemon Go's still huge. Pikmin Bloom's huge. Well, I don't know if it's that huge actually. I take back Pikmin Bloom, but Pokemon Trading Card Game Pocket is huge. The upcoming Zelda movie is gonna be a big deal. Like they have tons of IP stuff, and it feels like this is the first Nintendo system where all that's established and built up and situated, and Nintendo can just leverage that as the unique selling point of Switch 2. All those characters you love are only over here. We don't need a whole new weird mechanic of how to play. Everyone knows how video games work. Everyone plays games now. But if you want to play those guys' games, Mario's and Link's and Pokemon, you're doing it on our system. And I think a good example of them kind of maybe making this pivot is for the first time. Do you guys remember the Who Are You campaign in like the GameCube, Game Boy Advance era?
Yeah.
Oh,
I watched TV.
vaguely?
Like it was so it was the first time Nintendo ever said, "Oh, we're doing a holistic campaign for us." And they still did individual games in it, and they still gained Game Boy and GameCube, but the whole ad campaign was just random things, real photos of real things, and then they fake scotch taped on Nintendo characters, like cutouts of heads. And the premise was basically like we all have a Nintendo character inside it. Like we all love Mario, or we all want to be Samus or whatever. Who are you? So the different ads would use that tagline, and then they'd promote, Metroid Prime 2 or whatever, and it'd be Samus. So they'd do like just a gyro awareness one for GameCube or Game Boy and just be a bunch of Marios or whatever.
I vaguely remember one of those ads of somebody standing in like a restroom in front of a urinal with a Luigi head. Am I thinking? Am I far
I think
off?
so. I think you're on the right track. Yeah.
Or it was like a Paper Mario head. I don't remember.
Yeah, but it looked like it was like taped on, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Like, yeah.
Who
Yeah,
Are
that
You,
was Who Are You?
Nintendo?
Yeah. And over time, they kind of evolved it and it changed the styling of it, but the slogan stuck around. But the idea was basically like these characters are what are getting you on our consoles. And it might have been a little too late with GameCube, and they didn't have the whole IP like Disneyfication they have now. But for the first time since then, so in literally 20 years, they're doing it again. They're doing a huge ad campaign. They haven't even talked about it, but right now they're doing this huge ad campaign for just characters, not a console, not a game, just like Mario or Pikmin. I don't know if you guys noticed when I posted. Anyone listening, I don't know if you saw it on my socials. I don't know if you two, I know Angel, you don't check that much anymore, saw it on my Twitter or threads, but I've been bumping into these ads lately around LA, and I've been posting them as I see them, and I'm kind of fascinated by it. Like there's a huge banner in Terminal 7 of LAX. It's just New Super Mario Brothers art. Like it's just key art. It's just like a scene of one of the levels with all the characters rendered. And it just says Mario on it. And that's it. I mean, there's Pikmin in the corner too, which is a nice little Easter egg. But that's it. It doesn't say a game. It doesn't say a system. It's just Super Mario, some Mario artwork, and a Nintendo logo.
So
And then, yeah.
I can't find the urinal ad. So
I wonder if that one
don't
was
know
fake.
where I got that from. Let's pretend I never brought it up.
But it does fit the motif of what those ads were, which were like they had one of like a boxer and it was like Wario's head on it or something. Like it was like a black and white photo of a boxer, maybe a Muhammad Ali photo. Like it was in the wheelhouse. You weren't too far off, in all honesty. But yeah, now this one's a little more direct, the one they're doing now. They're not taping people to things or putting things on urinals, but or like putting pictures of urinals. But yeah, like there's this banner at LAX I saw just this past Saturday. Coincidentally, I was driving around Beverly Hills and I saw multiple like LA double-decker like tourist tour buses, and the entire bus was wrapped in Nintendo art. So one of them was Mario, kind of like at LAX. Another one was just Pikmin. Literally all that was on it was a Pikmin logo, a bunch of Pikmin art, and a Nintendo logo. And they have multiples of the buses just running around LA right now. And I looked it up, and they're in Chicago, they're in New York. Like Nintendo's just doing this thing. Again, none of these ads I saw said a specific game. They didn't say Switch. They didn't say anything but the IP and have the characters. Like it was brand awareness for the characters. And
I got an update.
yes.
Sorry to interrupt.
No, you're
I
good.
Googled
This is pressing.
Nintendo urinal ad, and two things. Apparently, PD piranha plants are the urinals in Nintendo World.
I think they had the vines under them. Yeah, on the ceramic. Yeah,
Yeah, but then the ceramic is also
I don't remember.
red
Maybe
and
not
spotted white.
Oh, are they? I don't remember that. Maybe at the Japan one. I don't remember seeing that either.
This says at Universal Studios, but I guess it doesn't say which one.
Right.
So what I was thinking was Rayman. Rayman is pissing at a urinal.
Oh yeah, the Rayman 2, right? I think. Or was
Rayman
it
3.
3. Okay. Yeah, it wasn't the original. I remember that. Yeah.
And they're all checking them out. The four guys around them.
There was an era of. Hold on, I think did my AirPod just die on me? Oh goodness. There was an era
Something
of.
died. You sound way better now.
It's weird. I just took out one AirPod and left the other one in. There was an era of '90s ads where every video game ad had to be unnecessarily edgy, and I love how even Rayman had to get in on that with that. Like, there's no reason Rayman has to have a look what that limbless guy is packing, and yet that's what they did. Why? It was the '90s, I guess. Or actually, no, I take that back. Rayman 3 would have been like 2003. It was the early 2000s, I guess. You guys still here?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. I was like,
Yeah,
did me saying Rayman Packin just destroy the whole podcast in one go?
Not necessarily.
Yeah, but yeah. So these ads that Toad's doing are much more PG, even one could say. But it's really interesting that Nintendo seems to be trying to get people's foot in the door into their ecosystem, not with some new gaming paradigm like motion control or 3D or whatever, or not really a new single hardware hook. Like Switch 2 has a mouse, but that wasn't even that was not the center point of Switch 2. They didn't even confirm it in the first video of Switch 2. It's just kind of a thing that's on the side. It's like a piece of the pie, not the whole pie. So it's very interesting to me that they're doing a huge ad campaign around characters right before launching a new console. I have to imagine they're connected. I have to imagine that's going to be a big selling point for Switch 2 because it's area. So I'll be really curious to see how this in of itself plays out. Will this buoy up the Switch 2 enough? Because I feel like we've been talking about Nintendo Disneyfying for 10 years now, right? And at least, which means our podcast is really old. But also this is the first time where maybe it in of itself is the selling point. They don't need an outside the box thing, at least for this generation. And even now, analysts are there's someone that spoke with Bloomberg for some analyst firm, and he's predicting Nintendo may have up to 20 million Switch 2 units shipped in the first fiscal year. That's more than PS5 had at 13 million. That's more than PS4 had at 14 million. That's more than 3DS had at 15 million. It's more than those by a large number. So there really is a lot of belief that IPs might be enough to carry this thing. So I'm really curious how it plays out. It's very different than the Nintendo we've seen for the last however many generations, 4 generations since GameCube, really. So yeah, I don't know. It'll be interesting. But I also think what it means, one last thought in the Jason rants. I think it means Nintendo's gonna have to differentiate the gaming experiences on Switch 2 in a way that also harkens back to the GameCube. I think fitting with the Switch ethos, I think we're gonna see evolution, not necessarily revolution. Because you know what I found most interesting about the little bits of Mario Kart we saw, of which we saw maybe 10 seconds total? Well,
The
actually,
24 player count.
Exactly. Yes. I think. And so when I first watched it, I was like, "This is it." Graphically, it looks good. The new art style, I think, is cutesy and fun and kind of a chibi way, but it does not scream new hardware to me. But then once the 24 player thing became apparent, as people were pointing out how many little notches are at the starting line, that's when I realized, even if the new Mario Kart were to be exactly the same visually, the sheer power required to double up the racers and the scale of growth and how many items you'll encounter, the factorial jump in the number of items that could happen, either that's going to be complete chaos or that is a huge change in the gameplay that's made possible because the Switch 2 is more powerful. So it's not a revolution in how you control Mario Kart. It's not going to do motion control. It's not revolutionary and you can now play Mario Kart anywhere in the world at any time, online or off. But it requires major tinkering or rethinks of item balance, frequency, track size, track scope. It's arguably the biggest evolution of the core gameplay of Mario Kart since Double Dash brought us co-op play. Yeah, you can. There's little hang gliders and submarines and anti-grav, but that didn't change the gameplay. That was just like a little flourish with slightly different physics. This could be the biggest evolutionary change to Mario Kart since Double Dash. And I think that, in the GameCube days, that was the last time Nintendo really had to make the console be about games that evolved from what you played before, instead of just new ways to play things you're familiar with. And of course, I'm simplifying this. There's a lot of like new gameplay ideas that came out of new ways to play. But if you look at like N64 to GameCube, they had to do just gameplay mechanics to stand stuff out. And it was all stuff that built on what we saw before. So the Flood was like an extra degree of movement to Mario 64's basic gameplay for Mario Sunshine. The ocean in Wind Waker was like the scope of Hyrule Field from Ocarina of Time completely blown out because the GameCube could run something like that. I feel like that's the vibe we're going to get from a lot of Switch 2 games. It's going to be like, oh, well, yeah, you played this on Switch, but you haven't played it like this, or you haven't been able to play it at this scale or in this way, like these kind of evolved takes on games. And of course, Switch 1 had some evolved stuff. Breath of the Wild, totally new approach to Zelda. Kirby and the Forgotten Land, they 3Dified it for the first time. So it's not like they haven't been able to do this, and every new first-party game always has a new gameplay hook. But I bet you that the big selling point with Switch 2 games, and probably why Mario Kart was a prime example, front and center in a trailer, all about how Switch 2 is an evolved form of Switch 1, is that the games will be like evolved past what you thought you could do in those games in the past. So that's my hot take. I think we're looking at basically the return of like a GameCube style era of Nintendo games. Which honestly, GameCube's one of my favorite consoles because Nintendo got a little more experimental. They got a little more weird. Not all of them were huge hits. Obviously, Sunshine's considered not as good as some of the others, but like it was kind of a fun time to be a fan. So I'm curious to see if you take Nintendo's success rate of new ideas on Switch 1 and blow it out into the potential of what Switch 2 could power and say, well, the hook has to be what you do in the game, not with the game. There could be some cool stuff with Switch 2. So that's kind of all I gleaned from a 2-minute and 22-second trailer. So there you go. I can turn a mountain out of a molehill. Yeah. Are you guys excited for Mario Kart? Do you like the idea of 24 players? Or 24 racers, I should say?
I guess I would have to see it in practice.
Yeah.
I remember there's that rumor that the next Mario Kart was going to have the twist.
Yeah.
Obviously, we take everything with a grain of salt, but if this is that new twist, it's like kind of like eh.
I think there might be a second half to the twist. Someone pointed this out, and they speculated with it. Someone on Twitter, I don't remember their username, but credit to them. There is a very prominent fuel tank on Mario's new kart. And we know from our longtime Nintendo playing history, Nintendo doesn't make a big flourishy thing part of a design of something unless the big flourishy thing is relevant to the gameplay of the something, right? Like, they didn't just give Luigi this big old backpack with a vacuum. No, the vacuum was the core gameplay mechanic. So if there's a huge fuel tank on the side of Mario's kart, I do wonder if fuel will now be some sort of gameplay mechanic. I don't know if that means you can boost without mushrooms. I don't know if that means there's this in the 5 seconds of footage we saw, there's this yellow glowy thing inside like the Yoshi burger joint, which by the way, I love the design of that Yoshi burger joint. It's literally shaped like Yoshi. But there's like this yellow glowy thing. Someone was like, oh, it kind of looks like a Wonder Seed from Mario Wonder, which who knows. But I do wonder if there's like something you can collect to like maintain a fuel level, to maintain a top speed. I have no idea. Like instead of coins, maybe it's something a little more literal. I have no idea. But there's no way they're just like slap a big old fuel tank on it without there being something attached to that. So that might be more of the twist than like that plus the player count might be like a 1-2 punch. I'm not sure. But you're right that just players might not be enough. Because I remember when Mario Kart Wii did that, it went up to 12, I believe, right? And they just made all the courses really wide. And it's not one of my favorite Mario Karts. It didn't feel, I don't know. Something about it didn't click with me. So I would probably also want more than just like more cars on a wider track. But I guess time will tell. I do wonder, actually. Now I'm just riffing, guys. I do wonder if there was some symbolism to how Mario Kart Tour and Mario Kart 8 Booster Course Pass overstuffed retro tracks as sort of like the end of an era of Mario Kart. Like I can't imagine you can easily retrofit a lot of those tracks to fit 24 racers comfortably and make it somewhat playable and not complete chaos. So I do wonder if we're going to see fewer retro tracks, like fewer like straight up just carbon copies, and if we're going to see more original stuff. Like, was that intentionally kind of a breaking point? Like they like kind of were like, all right, here's all the retro tracks. We'll see you later. We're doing new stuff now. Like it I'd be curious how they handle something as signature to the Mario Kart franchise as regurgitating retro tracks if the tracks have to be widened like fourfold. It doesn't seem like it would work particularly well, you know? But time will tell.
I can't say the idea of 24 players excites me. It's one of those things where it just sounds like a bad idea in my head until I see it. Like it has to be defended when I hear that kind of idea. My initial reaction isn't, "Oh man, that sounds fun." To me, it sounds more like, "Oh man, that sounds annoying." But
Yeah,
you know,
like,
I could be
they have to
but I could be totally wrong.
re-tinker. I mean, they have to, no
But
doubt, and I was kind of saying this in my ramble. They
but
have to
that's their
retinker
job, right? They have.
all the balance of all the items. Like, if there's ever a time to
But
like hit reset on the items, this would have to be that time.
but
Yeah.
that's for them to figure out, because all that means is that there is a need, or at least a hole in the massive player count karting genre that clearly has only resulted in me wincing at the thought of that being possible. So if they can create the one that makes me go, "Oh, this is why that's cool," because you know when I think of that, I think F-Zero 99, or even honestly Mario Kart. Whenever there's like when you're playing with 12 people, like I think it's not its most fun when it's like with um like usually like the max like four to six. It's more personal and competitive, but then again, it really comes down to how everyone prefers their games or plays their games. So
There's
just
also a
have to
ton
wait
of
and see.
there's also like by that same token of like we'll just have to see. There's a ton of like why when they zoom out does the track go on forever into the desert? Like what the track has to loop at some point. Like what's that about? Like there's a lot of questions about scale of things that teaser left me with. Like the scale of the number of racers, the scale of the track, the scale of the environment. Like it just seems that seemed like a very long open highway, not a tight
Mm.
Mario Kart course, you know?
I don't know, maybe portals is the thing. I don't know.
Oh, maybe. Yeah, I mean, we'll find out, but it definitely did a good job kind of weighing the appetite. I would have loved if they did like one or two other games. I think Metroid Prime 4, if they announced it as a dual SKU, would have been cool, but I understand they need to explain that if they do that. So presumably that will come in the April 2nd Direct, and presumably it's going to be just like Twilight Princess, where it's, yeah, you could play it on the system we announced it for originally, or use the new control input only available on the new system. So Switch 2, maybe it supports mouse. Switch 1, it supports gyro and stick only. I could see that happening.
Game distribution will be interesting. I would love for Nintendo to do something that Microsoft was doing with Xbox earlier during the series generation, where if you bought your disc for your Xbox One copy, it also like automatically upgraded with your Series S or Series X. Where you're not necessarily buying a Switch 2 cart, you're buying a Switch cart. And, you know,
right.
the hardware just like automatically upscales it for the performance that you have with the Switch 2.
That would be super nice. And obviously they'd have to patch some older games, but like some of the later life games on Switch 1, as we all know, and as Kevin, you've definitely ranted about, have chugged. So if there's a way they could say, hey, revisit Scarlet and Violet, revisit Tears of the Kingdom, revisit game X, Y, or Z, but now it's like smooth, and we even
like
sort of AI upscaled it.
Switch 2.
Yeah.
You know?
And I think that speaks ideally to this ecosystem thing Nintendo keeps wanting to do. That's more like Apple, where yes, it's a new system, but like your old stuff will still work here, and actually, thanks to AI upscaling or whatever, like it'll look better than ever and run smoother than before. Just like if you get a new iPhone, all your old apps are still on there, but some of them don't chug as much because of the faster processor and all that jazz. It's interesting because I feel like there's such a long period of time where there's a Switch Pro rumored, and I was like, oh yeah, it's going to do 4K upscaling, and like that kind of percolated for a while and didn't really amount to anything. But I feel like this is where it maybe comes into play, and people just either Nintendo shelved it for Switch 2 to make it one more selling point, because again, it's iterative. They need to figure out new ways to evolve the hardware, or it was never true for Switch Pro and it was always Switch 2, or maybe it won't be true for Switch 2, but that feels like such a shoo-in. because we know it's known, it's released, it's credited. There is a patent they have on this. We know the chip that Nintendo uses for the Switches, NVIDIA does DLSS with. It exists. It's just a question of whether Nintendo wants to implement it, I guess. So because that could be really cool, I think. And also it allows them to keep doing cartridges, but let the games get big. Because the issue I fear with third-party games is games are massive on PlayStation and Xbox now, like hundreds of gigs. Switch cartridges, I think, go up to 32 gigs. Maybe the new ones will do 64 or 128. But even then, you still got to be able to compress like crazy. So if you can do lower res assets and then use Switch's built-in DLSS to up-res those assets, and then you get bigger games on physical releases or smaller downloads, or what have you, like that seems like a win, even if it's not like for retroactively fixing Switch 1 games, but just to make it easier for third parties to get bigger games onto Switch 2, you know? And then it can play with the big dogs in terms of graphics a bit better too. It will never be as good as PS5 or whatever Series 1X or the next Xbox is, but it could make it easier to port things down, probably, which just shores up better to the price part overall, I would guess. So, a lot of interesting stuff under the hood that I'm sure we'll learn more about in the coming months. Actually, no, I'm sure we'll learn nothing more until April 2nd, but we'll see leaks and rumors in the coming months. But yeah, officially, I think April 2nd is the next time we're going to hear anything Switch 2 related. Yeah, so that's Switch 2. Any other thoughts you guys had on it?
No, not really. I mean,
You gonna get it, Kevin?
I'm sorry?
You gonna get it?
Yeah, like I texted you guys, I can't wait to buy it and play it once every 2 years.
I am very curious, like, once they announce how it all works and what it all is and the games and stuff, I am curious, like, as a Steam Deck guy, like, what your opinion will be at that point. Because that's going to be a question that Nintendo's going to have to tackle in the early days of Switch 2. Because the enthusiasts are the ones that will own Steam Decks, you know?
Yeah, and, like, don't get me wrong, it's sort of it's funny because, you know, the perfect pairing before used to be like you either get your Sony console or your Microsoft console. You never get both, but you also you pair it with a Nintendo console, right?
Yeah, like the old Wii 60, Xbox 360, and Wii. Yeah,
and so now it's interesting where it's almost like with your handheld, whether you get your AOG, your ROG Ally, or your Lenovo Legion, or your Steam Deck, and now you pair it with your Switch. It's honestly not that bad. Having these two handheld consoles that are going to play radically different games. It's it's interesting. Like the fact that on my Steam Deck I can play, you know, in a couple of days I'm going to be playing what's it called? Final Fantasy Rebirth.
So, fun thing about that, there are rumblings from people that is also coming to Switch 2. So the game, Switch 2 will get closer.
Very, very impressed if it could, because the PlayStation 4 can't handle Final Fantasy 4 Rebirth, and this is supposed to be on PS4, par with the PS4 Pro.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering if Square Enix is going to go the stream route again.
I wonder if this is where the DLSS upscaling comes in. Because if they can use smaller assets that are easier to render and then just upscale their resolution, they could get close. The thing is, though, and here's the other piece of all
I've been muted this entire thing.
What? Oh, were you talking still?
I was talking. Sorry, man. No, it's fine. No, but I did completely forget that Square Enix did mention that they have Rebirth optimized for the Steam Deck. So for all I know, they are going out of their way to optimize it for the Switch 2 as well. So it is a possibility.
The thing I'm kind of curious about, and we saw this happen with Switch 1 in the later part of its life, third-party support dropped off because it just wasn't feasible to spend the time and money and resources to downscale a game heavily enough to Switch 1, because, you know, PS5 became more prominent, Xbox Series became more prominent. I do wonder like, because to your point, it's supposed to be about PS4 level and quality. Like, what will be the shelf life of third-party support on Switch 2? Because the shelf life on Switch 1 was very good until suddenly it wasn't. Like, we got like all sorts of major stuff that you would never expect on Switch 1, and then it's just like, all right, enough of that. Here's some indie stuff and some stuff from Sega and some Square Enix smaller scale projects, and that's about it. And I feel like if Switch 2 is at PS4 Pro levels, let's say, and Nintendo will never say the exact specs, but let's say, are we looking at maybe 5 years of good third-party support? I think that's what Switch 1 had, in which case that's great, but is Nintendo going to try and milk it another 4 years? Like, it's interesting to think about, like, the longer-term life of Switch 2. I know we're not even at the release of Switch 2, but does Nintendo think how... It seems like it worked well. Switch 1 continued to sell super well, even as third-party support dropped off, so I'm curious if they're going to try and replicate that, or if they see third parties being more crucial because there's competing console or competing gaming PC handhelds, or if it's less crucial because they're leaning on the IP thing as the selling point of Switch 2, which I'm sure is a big part of it. It's going to be really interesting to see like what they match to Switch 1 and what they try and diverge paths with from Switch 1. Like, it's rare, I feel like Nintendo gets a chance to kind of like do a do-over almost. Like, well, here's everything we did with the first one. We're going to do it again, but we're going to do it better. And here's how it's going to be better. Like, it's always, there's some new hook that they have to accommodate for. So they don't one-to-one repeat it, you know? So I'm curious how this is going to go. Because third-party support's definitely going to be a biggie early on, I think. But we'll see. I'm just glad we're past the days of like 5 third-party games on a console from Nintendo. Like, it's so nice that the conversation of no third-party support Nintendo is like finally gone. Nintendo's Kitty, finally not a conversation. You know, I was talking about how it's kind of like going back to the GameCube days, but we're in such a better spot as Nintendo fans to not have to worry about any of those conversations anymore.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So, but yeah, it'll be interesting. And Angel, you already said you're getting it. No questions asked. You don't need to see it. You don't need to play it. You just need it in your hands, right?
Yep.
And then you got me, who wants to ask all the questions, get all the answers, play it every possible way, and then we'll probably play it the least out of the 3 of us. So we all got our role to play, and we'll carry it on into. That's true. You said you're gonna play it twice, but yeah, we got our roles. We'll carry them on into the new generation. Besides Switch, is there anything you guys want to talk about this episode? I feel like it's a biggie for Nintendo, just because it was a big week for Nintendo last week.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't. Like I said, I was stuck in Texas, or
Right.
I'm sorry, stuck in Frisco all last week, so I didn't necessarily get a chance to enjoy new content the way I wanted to. Right after this, once I'm done editing the podcast, I'm going to be watching Nosferatu, though.
Oh yeah, we should talk about that next episode because I saw that a few weeks ago, and
yeah,
it's interesting. Yeah, I have not seen any of the other ones, so it's interesting to go in kind of blind and with no historical bearings outside Dracula.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So at the very least, we'll have that to talk about.
Yeah, we'll probably have some other stuff. I imagine there'll be some stuff. But in the interim, unless Angel, you have anything, I guess we could wrap it here.
I guess is Rayman's appendage also floating?
Oh, did you look up the ad?
It would have to be.
That's a fair question. Do you think Ubisoft gave it that thought when they were making the ad? Do you think someone's like, wait, physics and logistics of this? Hang on, guys. What's canon here about his full body parts?
I mean, the funny thing is that
there like a character
anime, that anime where Rayman goes on a killing spree and does some illegal substances probably maybe has an answer. I don't know. It definitely seems like the kind of show that would have an answer.
What are you talking about?
There is a show on Netflix, like a animated show.
It's not quite a real anime. I think it's produced in the West, but it's anime style.
I honestly don't know who made it, but it involves a lot of like Ubisoft properties and like some original characters. But Rayman is like a character in there. I don't know what his role is, but he seems to be like down on his trouble. He seems to have been, playing the ex-celebrity kind of role, and he does some stuff with some cow people and does a bunch of crazy stuff.
The basic
premise
premise
thought it was a fan
is,
animation, but it was real.
Yeah, the basic premise is Captain N, the Game Master from the early 90s with Nintendo characters, but make it edgy and modern and Ubisoft. That's kind of the whole premise of that show. I forgot what it's called, but Ubisoft promoted it at E3. when it was coming out, and it was like a thing. It's when they were doing that big push into doing movies and TV with their IPs. And now, poor Ubisoft is probably on the cusp of maybe being bought by someone or sold off to someone. So, how the mighty have fallen.
Yeah, we'll fly the flag at half mast. No, Ubisoft's been
I've
messing
always
up a
liked
lot.
them.
I feel bad for the devs that are working hard, but
Yeah.
I'm sorry, that management is
Oh, their
god
management's
awful.
not the best, but I always appreciate
How
that.
Eves is still getting away with it is pretty wild.
Yeah, I do appreciate how, as a Nintendo player only, every Nintendo generation, every Nintendo system, Ubisoft's like, we're here and we're bringing you 9 games at once. And it's like, oh, Monster Truck Jam and Pink Pals and Asphalt and Rayman? I'll take half of those, sure. But yeah, they always had the most like smorgasbord of random games at Nintendo console launches. Or at least they did for a very long time. And Red Steel on the Wii, can't forget that. So I have a soft spot.
Okay.
They've always been Nintendo supporter, but they have many managerial issues. You are correct. So take that, Ubisoft. And with that, I guess we'll wrap it up for this episode. To make sure you don't miss any, it's going to be, I mean, frankly, it's going to be a fun year if you're a Nintendo fan, because it's always fun going into a new console generation. Even if it's iterative and evolutionary, not revolutionary, but to make sure you don't miss any of the ups and downs and in-betweens of the Nintendo console cycle and our thoughts on it, of anything we're doing outside Nintendo, which is bountiful amounts of things. You can subscribe to us on all your favorite podcasting apps. We are on Apple Podcasts. We are on Google Podcasts. We are on Pandora. We are on Amazon Music. We are on Spotify. We are on TuneIn. We are on iHeartRadio. We are on YouTube at Ram Nintendo. We are on Twitter, where you can get tweet updates of our podcast at Ram Nintendo. We are also individually on the internet. I am JSR7 on Threads and Twitter. Great if you want to see pictures of Nintendo's character-only marketing when I come across it. It's been 2 times now, maybe a third is coming. You can find Kevin, KVN Gomi, on Twitter and Blue Sky, where he is just giving his opinions. And you can find Angel and his pictures over at World of Weros on Instagram. Think that covers it for the bookkeeping. Kevin, how would you, sir, like to give the final word?
I wouldn't.